Hello, this is Life Coach Angelia with Works of Hearts Teen Pregnancy Life Coaching Program, Part 4. We left off talking about teaching your pregnant teen or parenting teen pro-social decisions that involve everyone, how to account for, how does this affect other people? Because you need to teach them not to be selfish. It has to be about other people too. What's best for everyone involved. Like with the coronavirus now, what's best for everyone involved is, limiting your contact, social distancing, so, we all don't get this horrible thing that's going around. And we're going to start off on using higher cognitive abilities to master complicated tasks and problem solving. Now, some people develop higher cognitive abilities in the late teens, early 20s. Some people don't, and some people never do. So, that's something you have to work with them on. And, if they're just not getting it, then they're just not ready to get it. But, do your best. Do your best to teach them higher logical thinking. And I know that can be hard, especially with someone who's pregnant full of hormones and in their teens anyway. But they need to master complicated tasks. They need to know life is hard. Life is not easy. No one's going to put something in your lap. Nothing's just going to fall on your plate. Rarely that happens, and it's a blessing when it does. But most of the time, life is going to be complicated. There are going to be tasks they have to do to get from point A to point B, and they're going to have to know how to take the steps necessary to get from point A to point B. One of the things I preach all the time is outlines, outlines, outlines. Make an outline, because an outline is a tangible thing you can see. Step A, step B, and of course, there are going to be steps you didn't realize you had to take, and you can fill those in, 1, 2, later on. But they need to know how to master complicated tasks, or to be ready to master complicated tasks, because that's part of life. If you expect to just breeze through life, without having a complicated task to take care of, you're going to have a rude awakening. And problem solving. No one in life has never had a problem. Problems come. You have to learn how to solve a problem. Identify the problem. Identify possible solutions to the problem. You can write those down too. And then look at what's best for me if it just involves you, or what's best for everyone involved if it involves other people. So you need to teach them problem solving, so they can get through their problems, and not be like I said, there's some people who never had to think or take care of themselves, and their families did them a disservice, because then they're, 56 years old, they don't have their parents anymore all of a sudden, and they're like, how do I do this? I don't know how do I solve this problem? I can't do this. This is too big for me. No, nothing's too big for you. Pray on it. Take the steps necessary. Identify the problem. Identify possible solutions and steps you can take to solve the problem. You need to teach them problem solving, because they're going to have problems in their lives. They can't just lay down and say, woe is me, and get through their problem. Taking appropriate risks. Risk-taking is not always a bad thing. We take good risks, like applying for a new job, or trying a new food. That is a good risk. And of course, there are bad risks, like having, 20 sex partners, or jumping off a bridge, You take appropriate risks that you think could possibly benefit you, not harm you. Resisting others. This is a big thing for teenagers, because it's all about fitting in and being with their friends or whatever. Sometimes your friends are really frenemies, and they don't have your best interests at heart. So you need to think about what's best for you, what's best for your children, what's best for your situation, and resist others' pressure to get you to do what they want you to do. And that's hard, and that only comes with maturity, but you need to tell them that, so they understand they can say no, and that they should think for themselves and not let other people lead them down the wrong path. Maintaining personal safety. Teach them you don't go walking down alleyways full of noise at night. Um, if you're supposed to go on a date with a guy and two guys show up in the car, even though, the other guy might say, oh, well, I want him to come. He's my friend. We don't spend a lot of time together or whatever. And, your heart might say, oh, okay, I'm going to be nice and let this, guy come with us. That's fine. But then you're in the car with two guys, and stuff happens. And even though you knew you didn't feel right about this, you try to be nice and still did it, and then you end up getting hurt. Or going to a frat party where there's 20 guys in attendance, and you and your friend are the only two girls there. That's the time to turn around, walk out the door. Personal safety, think about it. You can have a whistle, there's mace, you can have mace, but think about your personal safety, especially if this child got pregnant through a sexual assault or molestation. Expressing your own ideas, learning to have your own ideas. This is hard for some teenagers. They're so into going with the flow and, doing what's popular. And, I like this because so-and-so likes this and I like them. They need to have their own ideas, because what celebrities say isn't always the best thing. What their friends say isn't always the best thing. What the most popular girl in their class says is not always the best thing. They need to be able to think for themselves. What's best for me? And using their own voice, especially if they've been abused, they may not feel comfortable expressing themselves and using their own voice. You need to teach them to do that, because they need to be heard. They are going to be a parent, and they need to express what they think is best for their child, especially if they're in a situation where they did not have the best upbringing and they don't want their children to be brought up the way they were brought up. They have to use their own voice. Will that sometimes cause conflict in the family? Yes, it will. But ultimately, they will feel so much better about what they did as a parent, if they're willing to have their own way of thinking about being a parent and to implement that with their children. Identify wants and needs. Some of these people, have never been given much in life, and that's sad. But, we need to talk about wants and needs. Something you need is housing, clothing, and food. You need those things to live. Something you might want is the latest CD by your favorite singer, or, to watch the latest, movie that costs, X amount of money. Movie tickets go up all the time. I hate to even give a quote on one. When your baby doesn't have formula at home and you need to go buy that, wants and needs. Things that you need should be taken care of first. A baby needs formula. A baby needs diapers and wipes, unless you're using wash rags. I've done that too. Things you want are not something you need. It's just something you want. So you need to teach the difference between those two. That goes back to the impulsiveness thing. And they need to know what they want out of life too, because they need to grow and learn and go that direction. Otherwise, they're not going to be happy with their life. Convey gratitude. They need to learn to say thank you. If they haven't got to that point in their life where they get something from somebody and then they're just like, give the big smile. Okay, it's nice that made you happy, but a thank you would be nice too. You need to learn to say grateful things like thank you, you're welcome. That's good manners. But also it conveys to other people that you care about them, that you're grateful for what they did for you, other than acting, like a little kid and be like, when someone does something nice for you, that's good, that's fine, we're glad we made you happy. But a thank you would be appreciated. You want your teen to have good manners. And affirm others. And that goes back to, we would like that. Thank you. You're affirming others. If someone does something for you, if the grandma buys you this big, huge box of baby stuff, you want to affirm, thank you, Grandma, that was so nice of you. You want to affirm that they did something nice. Because starting out like that, if you don't affirm others, then they're not going to feel like doing anything more for you. And you're going to respect others' feelings, their partner or whatever. You want to be thankful. You want to affirm that other people have feelings, other people have thoughts, and that's okay. They're allowed to be them, and you're allowed to be you. So, you want to teach them how to be friendly and affirm other people if they haven't been taught that up to this point. And a lot of them, unfortunately, haven't been. Excuse me. To disagree constructively. This is a big one, especially with teenagers, not to mention pregnant teenagers. We're all going to disagree. You're not going to agree with me 100%. I'm not going to agree with you 100%. That's a fact of life. And when you're in a relationship, you're going to disagree. And if every time you disagree, you just throw the relationship in the garbage, then you're going to have relationship after relationship after relationship, and that's not going to work out. And this is something they teach you in counseling and in couples counseling, is you need to learn to disagree constructively. Okay, here's the problem. We disagree about this, and parents and children have these disagreements all the time. But what you need to realize is everyone has their own opinion, their own outlook, their own point of view, and that's unique. So what you need to do is talk that out. I feel like this is a bad thing because of this. Well, I feel like this is a good thing because of this. And so then if you can note those and write down the pros and cons here, you might both see that both of you agree that this is a good thing in this regard. So there is common ground. There's middle ground that you can meet on so that you can disagree constructively and build. Here's what we disagree on, but here's what we agree on. We both love our child and we both want the best upbringing for our child. And we both agree that this is good and this is not so good. And so you build on what you agree on. And let the other things, go if it's not that big a deal. Sometimes it is a big deal. And sometimes that's where you have problems with, I can't continue in this relationship because this is such a big deal to me. It's that important. And that happens. But they have to disagree constructively. They have to be able to build, and try to work it out. And that's like I tell people, if you have a partner who's not willing to go to couples counseling to save your relationship, then let them go. Because if someone really loved you and cared about you and was mature enough to have a relationship with you, they would agree to do that. Developing a vision or plan for the future. And that could include a career, a lifestyle, and their family. If they haven't identified a career that they want, kind of ask them, what's your best subject in school? What do you want to do? When you were a little kid, what did you dream about doing? And go from there. And what their lifestyle's like. They say they want to live in a big mansion and drive fancy cars. Okay, that's great. A lot of people want to do that. Where are you going to get the money to do that? Because once again, the whole thing about nothing's going to fall in your lap. Nobody's going to give you this thing. And if you do get something, that's a blessing. So you need to get them into reality, not fantastical thinking, not dream world thinking. Because a lot of teenagers live in the pie in the sky dream world thinking. And you need to bring them down to reality a little bit and say, okay, you're at point A. If you want to get to point B, how are you going to get there? There are steps along the way. Experiencing competence and inclusion in the larger community. Competence is where, you feel comfortable and you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. You're being successful at it. Now, insecurity comes in to teenager lives anyway. And then if you're a pregnant teenager, you have even more of that because you realize you're in an unusual situation. And so there's some insecurity there. But if you learn how to be competent at something, like, if your child says, well, I want to go, be a legal secretary. And so they take, the typing in the high school and then you get them into a college where that's something they take and they realize they are good at it and they can do it. And they start doing it, then they feel competent, I can do this, excuse me. That gives you self-esteem and it builds your confidence, so that's something, to work towards their strengths, and help them to become competent at something so that, excuse me, so that they can build on that for the rest of their life. And again, in the larger community, there are communities where pretty much there's some ageism. I've run across a few people have that problem in my life, where a teenager would not be valued in their opinion anyway, because you're just you don't know what you're talking about. So in their larger community, if they are competent at dealing with people of all ages, then that's going to help them, and unfortunately you can tell them that there is going to be age discrimination among certain populations, just the way it is. But if they can navigate, talking to young people and talking to older people, they'll have a better, footing in society, in their community, if they can deal with all members of the community, not just their own age group. Navigating issues of independence versus dependency, especially with the family of origin, they're going to have to learn to be independent. They're going to have to go out on their own someday. They're going to have to be able to have a job, have transportation, have money to pay the bills, and buy food and clothing. Okay, they have to have that if they want to be independent. Dependency. All too often, unfortunately, parents foster dependency, trying to give their children everything they didn't have. And if you don't allow your child to make decisions for themselves or be responsible for anything themselves, what you're teaching them is dependency, that they're dependent on you for everything. And like I said, there's 50 and 60-year-old people out there who suddenly don't have that anymore. They don't have their codependent partner in a parent or, aunt or grandma or whoever. And they're left with no life skills and they don't know how to do anything. And their anxiety level is just, through the roof. And they're in panic mode now. And so they're seeking out therapists now at this age because they don't even have the basic skills that they should have been taught as a child in order to navigate life. And that's sad. Learning to advocate effectively. And this is something that I kind of preached with a couple of my kids. Need to be able to speak up for yourself. Other people might not be your best buddy. They might not have your best interests at heart. You need to be able to advocate for yourself. Hey, this isn't fair to me. When I was trying to do this, this person was, in my way, or I needed more time. I couldn't write that fast. I couldn't understand. It was too fast. You need to be able to speak up and say, hold on, I'm having a problem with this. I need more time. I need some help. You have to advocate for yourself, because if you don't stand up for yourself, no one is going to do that for you. You don't have to be a jerk about it. You can just say, here's the facts. This went too fast for me, or I didn't understand, or I need more time, or I need some help. Be able to advocate for yourself, because you need to be your own best friend, because other than Jesus, no one else in the world is going to be as good a friend to you as you can be to yourself if you advocate for yourself. And I know there's all kinds of advocate groups out there that help other people, but you need to be able to stand up for yourself if you are mentally able to do that. Okay. Developing satisfactory self-image and stable identity. Again, back to the self-image thing. We're not going to look like models in the magazine, because like I said, most of those are photoshopped. They've elongated parts. They've thinned out parts. And we know there was a big thing, with Meghan Trainor, where she said, because they had thinned her down in one of these shots. And she's like, no, I'm not going to let that release. And some models admitted, yeah, they made the legs longer. They cleared up a blemish. That's not real. That is advertising, and they're going to make it look the best that they can, So be okay with your own body. And you teach them that their body is what it is. It's a product of their environment. It's a product of their heritage. It is what it is. Be happy, be healthy, eat right, exercise, be the best you that you can be. But be okay with your body. Don't, try to be like somebody else. Because I mean that can lead to bulimia, anorexia, and that's definitely unhealthy, especially if you're a pregnant teenager, because then you're doing damage to your baby. Um, and a stable identity. You need to know who you are. Who am I? And you can go through lists. You can make a list with them. This is something I used to do with living your own life clients. Is like from the earliest age, list all the good things about you that you can remember. List all the bad things about you that you can remember. What did you like to do when you were a kid? What did you think you would grow up and be? What are the things you like to do that are creative? What are the things you like to do when you play? And make all these lists so they can start to get a feel for who they are. And if there are things they don't like about themselves, they can certainly change those. Again, you're in control of your own life. You're in charge. And if you don't take charge of your own life, somebody else is going to do that for you. And that's not going to be a good situation. Leaving home. At this age, they're going to start leaving home. And your parents might be like, yay! But it changes once it actually happens. And you're like, oh! But eventually, they're going to have to live without you. Even if they live with you till the day you die, after you're dead, they're still going to have to live by themselves. Okay? So, leaving home is an important life skill. They have to know how they're going to get around. They have to know that they have to work unless, they got money from somewhere. They need to work to pay their bills, to put clothes on their body, and to feed themselves and their children, their pets, and whatever else is going on. So leaving home is an important skill. That's why I said about those little apartment situations with the baby daddy or the friends and it not working out. They need to learn that. That is a skill they need to learn. It's like, okay, so this is not a person I want in my life, and I don't want these kind of people in my life. This teaches them, because like I said, teenagers are impulsive. If they're old enough to do a thing, they think, well, I'm old enough to do this thing. I'm going to do this thing whether you like it or not. And so they do it. Facts of life. Did it myself. But they need to know how to live on their own. And like I said, that's what your 20s is all about. Building that life for yourself so you have a foundation by the time you're 30 that you can build on and add other people to the mix. I'll turn the page here. Challenges common to many youth who are pregnant. In general, uneven psychosocial development. A lot of teens who get pregnant did not come up in the best of situations. So their way of thinking, their way of treating other people is not the best. So when you come across teens like this, if you're coaching pregnant teens who don't have the best psychological or social upbringing, you need to fill in those gaps. You need to identify where is this person lacking mentally, where clock their age, where would you say their mental age is? Because you can have an 18-year-old that's acting like a 12-year-old. You can have a 17-year-old who just is, down near 14, 15, which is not too bad. And you need to catch them up because they're going to be a parent. And if they're not, together themselves the best that they can be, they're going to make mistakes with their child that can carry on into the rest of that child's life. So you need to catch them up mentally. And you need to catch them up socially. If they're having an attitude with everybody, they want to fight everybody who says anything about them, okay, that's not what adults do. Adults act like adults. So, you need to catch them up socially too, if they weren't brought up in a manner where they are mature socially. And unfortunately, that happens. Social skills deficits, again, please and thank you, having manners, having common sense, thinking about other people, being pro-social. If they were not brought up in a situation where that is happening in their home, then that's something you're going to need to catch them up on. Because as a parent, they're going to have to deal with, schools, principals, counselors, teachers, daycare workers, They have to have the social skills necessary in order to help their child navigate this world. Immaturity. Now, because they are teens, they're not going to be super mature. But if you notice things that are really immature for someone their age, you need to talk to them about that. And you need to catch them up so that they're at least where they should be. Because there are still a lot of older teens who have a lot of grandiose thinking and romantic thinking, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, again, you need to be down to earth on planet Earth, not up here somewhere where this wonderful magical thing is going to unfold for you and it's going to be great. Because chances are it's not happening. So you need to catch them up maturity-wise. Lack of understanding or confusion regarding changes occurring during adolescent development. They really just don't understand what's going on with their body. Why are my boobs getting so big? Explain that to them. How come I'm not having periods while I'm pregnant? Explain that to them. What can I expect once the baby comes? Am I going to start having, a period again? So-and-so said I can't get pregnant. Was that true once I'm breastfeeding? Catch them up on this stuff. Tell them this stuff. Because they're going to want to know, and that's your job as their life coach, to teach them this stuff. Okay, symptoms and behaviors characteristic of a child's primary diagnosis. And now this is for mentally ill or mentally disabled children. Unfortunately, mentally disabled children also can get pregnant, unless they were severely and the parents took precautions to make sure that didn't happen. Now, these are cases where there needs to be conversations with the parents. What do you want them to know? What are they capable, of knowing? Eventually you can fill that out for yourself, but it helps to get a read on the child when you come in if you get a talk with the parents about, what is the norm here. Because sometimes, they don't understand what you're saying or they're confused. And, it's tempting to be like, what? How did you get that out of what I just said? But it's better if you can explain and help them understand, clear up any confusion, so that you can move forward and they can move forward. Unfortunately, I have seen cases where this has happened, and I think that's just sad. Symptoms or behaviors, possible comorbidity. Now, if they grew up with a parent who's depressed, they're more likely to have depression. Anything this parents in the house have, this child can have or exhibit because this is how they were taught. So, you need to look for that, and, say, I can tell that this is, here, let's give you some exercises to do to help combat this. Or I see that this is a thing. Here's, how it should be, and work on these things. Teach them, how to manage their own self, because that's empowering, and it teaches them that they do have control over their life. Okay. Vulnerability for entry into juvenile or legal system. If they just did this because they're out wild running around, chances are they're going to have other problems too, that they might come into contact with the law for. If they get locked in the juvenile system, then the parents parents might say to put the baby in foster care if they don't care, or put it up for adoption or whatever. So you need to talk to them about, hey, do you want to be a responsible person? Do you want to raise this child? Because if so, you need to stop these behaviors. You need to stop acting like a little wild child and, grow up a little bit, become an adult. This is not good. This does not look good to anybody who's looking at your situation. You need to grow up and quit being, a little selfish child and run around doing whatever the heck you want. So sometimes you got to step in and do that. Vulnerability to uneven and at times pseudo-mature sexual activity. Because again, they think they know what they're doing. And they might feel like they do, and they make their decision to do this with whoever, and they've already had a bad decision because, they're pregnant. So you might want to talk to them about sexuality, and, to have love relationships versus, lust relationships, because that goes into their, explanation there. There's lust, there's love. These are two different things. Back to the intimacy thing, the friendship, to keep them from having multiple partners and popping out 6 kids, by the time they're 25, you want to keep that, in perspective with them, to say, is this what you want for your life? Because chances are it's probably not what they want for their life. Well, that's the end of our time. So I hope you found this educational. And if you're a life coach seeing this and are going to be doing this, you can certainly use my material or show my material. But I'm going to put the link for giving a little gift to help me out in the description. So if you decide to use this material, please donate. And that's all for now. Until next time.